everybody, to Illuminate, Navigate, Radiate, a journey of emotional resilience. I'm your host, Brandon, and this is our last episode of our grief series. It's been a really good time just being able to connect with Lou and getting to know Lou more and being able to talk about something that I think is a really important process that we're all going to experience at different times in our life. So today is our final episode. Lou, thank you for joining me again. How you doing today?
I'm good. Good to see you again. My dog's
Yeah, you
leaving.
as yeah, you as well. I know you were dealing with some family things on the last one, and I hope everything's getting better and you're doing all right. But I'm glad to connect again. Like I said, it's been a fun month, just kind of getting to chat with you a little bit. Having our little chats beforehand as well about the different
Yeah.
cultural differences, I guess, between Australia and America, and it's been a really good time. So thank you again for lending your time to me and talking about something as big as grief.
Thank you for having me. It's been really good, actually. And I'm sorry I missed last week, but yeah, it was a full on family time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, and no worries. I did my best in
You
handling it
did
by
great.
myself.
It was so
I
good. I mean,
appreciate
you
that.
covered everything I would have covered
Yeah.
anyway.
So yes, I appreciate that, and again, glad to have you back for our last conversation in this little series. But kind of, just going into this last episode of talking about, getting back to life, which sounds really overwhelming when you're dealing with loss and going through grief. Like the thought of going back to work, the thought of, taking care of responsibilities again, the thought of just doing everyday tasks, I think can seem really overwhelming in those moments. And when it kind of starts hitting you that you have to get back to it, because maybe you're not even, you might not even be even a little bit into that grief process or that healing process. You might, it still might be hitting you pretty big. So I guess just kind of starting off the conversation, what advice, or a tidbit of information would you give to somebody that is just dealt with a loss or just going through that grief process and looking at getting back to life, looking at getting back to just the everyday aspects and responsibilities that come with that?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's so hard because nothing stops for us so that we can process and grieve. And I mean, I don't know what the laws are over there as far as time off when you lose someone or something happens, but it's very minimal over here. It's, people might give you a couple of days off. They give you the week off of the funeral or something. Um, and then you're expected to just pick up and get back into it. And um, I guess, you know, so it is a luxury to be able to actually just sit and grieve,
Mm.
and be in it. But for those that don't have that space, I just feel like you need to simplify everything as much as you can, and begin really small. So, I mean, I would love to say just at the beginning, don't do anything. Like just be, like just feel each day, see how you are feeling. But I know that is a luxury for a lot of people, and you have to keep moving. So if you do have job, children, other responsibilities, which most of us do, um, I just think you keep it as simple as possible, and you make your care a top priority. So whether that means not seeing anyone, doing your job, getting home, getting takeaway if you can't even deal with cooking, like on weekends, if you need to stay in bed for the whole day, do that. I just think the more that we give ourselves that, the more that we start to move through things. I have one of my really close friends has just lost her mum, but she's lost 3 family members in a year. And she was over at my place the other night, and, she's trying to find a job at the moment, and it's all just so much. And I was just like, you just need to be, like stop putting so much pressure on yourself to move through it and have to be, we're just so hard on ourselves that we have to be productive all the time. And so, yeah, just start really like keep it simple, keep everything simple in your life, as simple as you can.
Yeah, no, I think that that simplifying thing is really big, right? Especially when it comes to, and I guess I even asked that question. I was looking at it as the as in the aspect of like you have things settled in your life, right? You have a job you go to every day. You have, everything's just kind of already you're in your flow. But then if you have other things going on where you're moving or you're looking for a job or you just lost your
Yeah.
job, and then just those other aspects that could complicate life. I think simplifying what you need to do or get done can make that a little bit easier to process and kind of heal from. But I like what you said, which I think I would say probably is a big part of it, is that self compassion, right?
Yeah.
Just that giving yourself that understanding that it's okay to struggle through those moments, giving yourself that understanding that it's like, hey, maybe we're not going to be the most productive today, or maybe we are going to take this time to kind of sit back and just think about, where I'm at, how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way, what things are going to look like, what things aren't going to look like giving your time and being compassionate to yourself and not say, you need to hurry up and get through this. You need to hurry up because then you gotta go to work on Monday. You gotta start looking for a job the next day. You gotta, cook dinner for five other people that are in your house. Like,
Yeah.
not pushing yourself through those really tough moments. I think that self compassion, um, it plays a really big role in being able to get back to everyday moments and everyday tasks. Like I feel like if you can be understanding to yourself as you work yourself back into that, you're not going to hit that wall after a week or two because you just pushed too hard too early in that moment.
Yeah. And if you're a really driven person, normally it can feel even harder because you're just like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get my motivation back? And also if you're not being supported in that too, that's another thing I've seen with a lot of people is, they say to me, I, I want to be able to grieve, but I don't feel that my partner is supporting me in that. They're saying to me, you got to get on with it. You can't just sit in this forever. Um, but that's a whole nother thing to deal with, I
Sorry,
guess.
it seems like we're just
Yeah, and I felt that for and then you develop shame around your grief and guilt around your grief because you feel like you're not being productive enough. So yeah, I think self compassion is so important. Like, and we are often our worst critics. Like we're so hard on ourselves. Things that I would say to myself, I would never say to a friend. About my own grief. I mean, I had it this week. I got really triggered by something and I just, yeah, I just really dove into hating myself and going, why aren't I over this yet? Why am I still feeling this? I thought I was healed. I thought I'm doing so good. And then again, it's just that reminder to me that it never ends. Like, we're always going to be dealing with our traumas and our stuff. Like, you don't get to a finish line and then everything's just perfect. And yeah, it constantly pops up to remind you.
And I think that's where that self compassion would play such a huge role. Is just to always understand, like, you're probably never gonna be completely healed, right? You're never gonna be like, oh, anything can come up, a reminder, an anniversary, a song, a saying, a smell, whatever connects us back to whatever that loss is.
Yeah,
That it's gonna be okay. And I think to be
yeah,
able to understand that and say to yourself, like, okay, these things are gonna happen. You know, it's okay that I'm gonna break down or that I'm gonna have
yeah,
an off day maybe because my mind is somewhere else, or I'm gonna struggle to feel a little bit more motivated because of those
yeah,
things. And I think that's like when it comes to that self compassion and getting back to it, if we're more understanding with ourselves, because like you said, we're so hard on ourselves,
yeah,
because we let all those external factors dictate the way we're supposed to feel, right? Whether it's our job saying you got to come back, whether it's a partner or a friend saying like, hey, it's been a month or whatever, you should probably like move on or or get over it
yeah,
or
yeah,
speed this process up a little bit. We let those
yeah,
external things dictate how we should feel when in reality, if we can just kind of look at ourselves and say, okay, I just need more time with this.
yeah,
I can cook dinner tonight, but I can't,
Yeah.
do that other little thing, or I can, take a shower again for the first time in a week today, and that will help me feel productive. And just those little steps, I think, starts getting us back to the flow, right? The flow of
Yeah.
life and the flow of our daily, the daily things that we're supposed to be doing and taking care of.
Yeah. And catching ourselves when we go into those negative thought patterns as well. Like I went there, but then I was like, hang on a minute, what are you doing? Like, it's okay that this has happened and you feel this way. This is still part of your healing. Like, it's still, every time these triggers happen, it actually is telling you the things that still need healing. So just focus on that rather than beating yourself up about the fact that you're still there. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, like going back into that thing, giving yourself that self compassion, and connecting with yourself in those moments as you get back to it, understanding that things are going to trigger you and why they may trigger you or why they may bring up some of those negative thoughts or negative emotions. Where do you think that importance is in like finding that connection with other people again? Because I know at least when I'm dealing with loss or grief, I want to isolate. I want to be by myself. I want to, I want to just sit there in my own thoughts in my own head. And sometimes it's that process of like talking to somebody about it or, just going out with somebody, maybe even not talking about it, but just being near somebody again. Like, where do you see that importance of connecting back with the other people around you as you go through that process?
Yeah, that was one of my points that I wrote down is it's really important depending on how you grieve, but regardless of how you grieve, actually, because I'm like you, I like to be alone. I think ultimately you do your hardest grieving on your own. It comes up when you're on your own, there's no other thoughts going on. But I also think it's really important to find your people, the people that can hold space for you, because not everyone can. And that for me was a really huge secondary loss, because some of my oldest friends that I thought were my best friends in the world, and they still are, but maybe haven't experienced any loss or just are not people that really love to go that deep. So it was really affronting for me at first because I'd kind of pour my heart out to someone and I wasn't being met the way I needed to be met. So it hurt me. And it hurt our friendships for a period because I was really angry and really like, I just couldn't understand it. But it also, once I sort of let go of that, it amazed me the people that did stand up for me and did sort of step up. And, obviously relationships change all the time, but finding the people that can hold space for your grief or you being not in a great way is so important too, so that you know where you're safe. Because sometimes you share something and then you realize, oh my God, this is the wrong audience. Like, you've got to find the right audience to feel supported. And I think a lot of people, that happens to them. And so then they just completely shut down. They go, no one understands me. I'm so isolated in this. But it's not true. If you make space for it and you do share, often people then share their vulnerability with you as well. Like, it's hard to be vulnerable with people, but yeah, it's also important to find those people.
Yeah, no, and like just with that, what you're talking about with vulnerability there, I think that really helps those connections and those relationships, and sometimes, whether you're the first one to say it to somebody about, what you're struggling with or what you're going through, even, that's where I think some of those new relationships and new connections can come from, because, if somebody just lost, their spouse or their parent or their child or their sibling or whatever, it may be, then somebody can come up to you and say like, I went through that same thing. I've experienced that same loss.
Yeah.
And then you can connect over that, right? Because it's hard
Yeah,
to it's
right.
hard to understand it, and it's hard to fathom if you haven't experienced some of those losses.
Yeah. But connection is so important. And I think, that's why I started the Grief Project, because I felt really lonely in my grief. And then once I started sharing my stuff, you know, like I've created some really beautiful friendships over Instagram. I've never met these people, but there's just this understanding and this common ground of knowing where we're all at, and that, yeah, it's so amazing and so beautiful when you do find those connections. And that's what I love about my page, is I see connections happening with other people as well, you know, people that have both lost a child, or there's some similarity, and you see their chat starting. And it's really nice to know that, because I think, you know, yeah, there's our friends, but there's also so many other ways we can find connection in grief, you know, and whether that is a grief group that you join, like David Kessler has a group called Tender Hearts, and I know a lot of people that have used that. But then sometimes it is an Instagram page, you know, that you just, it speaks to you, and it makes you feel less alone. And that's kind of key, not feeling so alone in it, because we all feel so alone, but there's so much that we all have in common too. We just don't share it enough.
Yeah, no, and I was going to ask you about that too, of that connection through what you do in that, the Grief Project and what you've started, and how how important something like that can be in a healing process is huge. Like, I really see the value in something like that. Just, I guess I kind of can relate it to the more so for me, the addiction side of things, and the mental health side of things, where when you can relate to people that, obviously your experiences may be a little bit different, but the the underlying thing that's happening, the way you identify with that, and to have somebody that you're able to talk to without judgment. Because when you talk to people that maybe not experience it, that's where you might get some of that judgment, even if they don't really even mean to, right? It might not even,
Yeah.
it might even be unintentional judgment of
Yeah.
just like, okay, well, you got to get back to life, or okay, well, that happened in the past, you got to let it go. Like, just some of those different things that may bother somebody going through that. And that's what I think is really cool about you starting the Grief Project, because it does just create this safe space to come to and know, like, right away, you're going to be able to find people that can relate to you. Right away, you're going to be able to find people that connect to you. And I
Yeah.
mean, what I've been doing with this is just, I think it's even cooler when you connect to somebody that you don't know, like, where that's like where the conversation starts. I think that's a really cool
Yeah.
thing that your page can offer us. Your starting spot is this pain and this vulnerability and this struggle. And when you're starting there with somebody, I think it can make that connection really, really strong, and just really help people process and start to get back to life. Because then you can sit there and say to, thousands of people, how do I take this next step? Or, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this. What are some different ideas that some of you have used to get back to moving? Or, I've had a setback.
Yeah.
What do I do in this moment? Do you see a lot of, like, or experience a lot of that yourself, of just seeing those little things that can play out like that?
Totally. Like I mean, that page I started just to, as a space for me to just pour my heart out, and then having people validate that and say to me, "Oh, your page is helping me. I felt so alone in my grief and now I feel heard." That also helped me heal, because I was like, "Oh my God, it's not just me." And the more, as it's grown, obviously, and I was really scared when it started to grow crazily, because I was like, "Oh, I'm going to lose this intimate," like it felt like a little family for a while. But it's actually amazes me as well how kind everyone is on it. Like, there's 112,000 people on there now, and it's so rare that I need to delete a comment. Or, I mean, I get some random ones that just go, "Oh, get over it. You people need to get over it." Um, but it's so rare. It's amazing how it has brought this people together, and they're so kind to each other. And there's never any judgment. There's never any, it's just, yeah, it's such a beautiful thing. Um, and yeah, so it's like it helped me so much. So when I get messages still, and now I do a question every week and ask, like, what's the worst thing anyone said to you in grief, or what's the best thing? And the responses are so amazing, and they help me as well, because it's just like, yeah, it's so good. And people do want to share. This is the interesting thing. Like, you kind of feel like you're there giving all the information. But when I ask those questions, there's hundreds of answers, because people do want to share their experience. That's how they start to heal, right? It's all about witnessing each other and hearing each other, and feeling heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, and giving that space for that is so powerful to be able to do that, right? Like, just
It's
in the
so
way the world goes today, there's at least what we get shown or what gets talked about the most is all the negativity or all the putting each other down or
yeah.
all that type of stuff of that we're the most separated and just a lot of negativity and so when you can see that when you can see people come together from all different places, probably all different backgrounds, life experiences, all those things, and see that connection, that's what's cool about it. That's what's awesome about that connection, is because it's born in that grief and that pain, that vulnerability, and then it becomes helping each other. It becomes building each other up. It becomes supporting each other through these really tough moments. And I think that's where we can get some of the most growth, is when we're open, when we're vulnerable, when we share our experiences, and when we keep
Yeah.
that open mind to listen to other people's experiences, because then we learn how to go through life. Right? We
Yeah.
learn how to deal with all this stuff that comes with being here on this earth in these moments. Um,
Yeah.
and kind
And
of
it's
kind of
hard
going. Oh,
sometimes.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's also really hard sometimes. There's been times where I've just been feeling really raw, and I've done a post, and then an hour later, I've been like, oh my God, it's too much. I'm going to delete it. But usually they are the posts that resonate the most with people. And then I get all this feedback of like, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us, because it just, yeah, it's hard to be vulnerable in that way. And you feel embarrassed, and then you think, oh God, because that page, it's not something I promote to my people in my life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, in fact, I kind of like people in my life not being there, because I feel like I'm just so much more, because it's that thing of like, do people, yeah, just the judgment. And again, it goes back to even those early days of me being sort of told, oh, we're worried about you. I think you need to see someone because you're not moving on fast enough. And even now, I've had a couple of people say some weird things to me about the Grief Project, like, oh, but like, you need to live for today and not just be focused on the past. And it's like, I'm a very much a person that lives in today. I'm a positive person. It's not like I'm, walking around miserable the whole time, just going, I'm grieving. But the fact that we try and push it away, society tries to go, well, that happened to you, but now that's done. It's just doesn't sit right with me. And it's like, yeah, we need to talk about these things more, because so many people just push it down and they end up sick. They end up mentally sick or physically sick, because where does it go if it doesn't come out? Just,
And I think that's such a valid point of like, because I've been told that, and I've heard that, like, oh, just leave it in the past. Why do you talk about it so much, or why do you
yeah,
just move on from it, or I even had this little discussion with my younger brother, who's 20, I believe, and he's like, but you're not an addict anymore. And so just like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm not using anymore, but I still
yeah,
have those
yeah,
things that if I don't acknowledge them, if I don't talk about them, if I don't address them, then that past is going to come back to me. And that doesn't
yeah,
mean I am miserable in thinking about that or in being in that, because I try to be super positive, and I feel that like just little things when they're happening, like I feel my mind like, okay, well, now you can deal with it this way, or you still have this going on, and like like I've done that so much that that's where my mind goes now, because I spent so long in that negativity, and it just made
yeah,
me miserable. That's when I was miserable, is when I spent
yeah,
time in that. And I don't have to I can be positive about my negative experiences, and I can use those in a positive way to cope with and deal with, and hopefully be able to relate to other people with. And I think that's,
Yeah.
that's a really good point in what you're saying. I think that's a big part in, getting back to being able to find joy in life, and
Yeah.
getting back to be able to have those experiences again. Because I felt like in those moments where I was grieving, where I was dealing with loss, the moments that like helped me find that joy again and helped me get back to it was where I was connecting with other people, and then I was getting back to those life things, and I was able to get back to soccer. I was able to get back to certain friendships or relationships, those things that brought me joy, and that came
Yeah.
from, that felt like that next step in connecting, right? I was able to connect, and then I was able to have people around me to where I felt safe. And well, if I do struggle in this moment, going back out to the soccer field or going into this environment, I got this person here who's going to have my back. I got this
Yeah.
person here who I can say, hey, like it's time to go, or hey, I'm struggling. And they're going to put
Yeah.
their arm around me and almost protect me in a way. And I think that helps getting back to those joyful moments, because at least for me, I felt safe in like, okay, if it doesn't go the way I hope it does or that I want it to, I got somebody there that can help me get through that tough moment.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. I think as well, like finding things. For me, I found I just got to a point where I was so over myself. I think we've discussed this before as well. Like just so over my negativity and feeling so crap all the time. And I just started trying to be grateful for one thing a day. I was just like, I needed to start focusing on positive stuff. And I know some people hate the whole affirmation thing. But I think it's really important to, even when you're in the pits of it where you're hating everything about life, even if you can just go, I am grateful that I have a warm bed. I don't know. I'm grateful that the air is cool today, whatever it is, um, because that just starts to shift your mindset. And then I started to also just do little things that gave me joy, like anything that made me happy. I'd sort of try and do one of those things a day so that I could go, okay, well, that gave me joy. Like recently, I've started playing the drums. I've always wanted to learn how to play the drums, and I got a drum kit, and it's like given me this whole new like excitement for life. And yesterday I was anxious all day. I was just having a really bad day. It was all over the triggering and stuff. And at some point I got on the drums, and I just felt my whole body release, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good for me. One, because I'm so focused that my brain isn't doing the overthinking. It's like focused on something else. It just gives it a rest. And yeah, I think it's really important in helping us to move forward, like finding more things that give us joy. And as well, like going back to things that you loved as a child, like anything, whatever that may be. Like, obviously there's the soccer connection. I bought a hula hoop at some point because I was just like, I used to love hula hooping. And it's just those little things that bring you back to yourself and just, yeah, shift that mindset a little bit. And then as you do that, it slowly gets easier. You find more joy than sadness.
Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
thing about the drums. I think that's a great example of like trying something new and putting
It's
yourself into
so
something.
good.
Right.
Yeah, my poor
There's
kids, they hate it, but
That's like the opposite, right? Usually you would think there was a parents getting mad about the drum set. But I think that's a really cool thing, just a example, right? Something that you've always wanted to do,
yeah,
and something that you can now find joy in, and
yeah,
find that. I feel like when you find joy in those moments, like you said, your mind kind of shuts off. You don't do the racing of the thoughts. You don't do the overthinking in those moments, and you're in that moment, you're present in that moment, banging on the
Yeah.
drums, or
Yeah.
spending time with somebody, or kicking a soccer ball, whatever it may be, and it brings that joy. And then, like you just said, it's a little bit easier to keep moving forward in life. And I love that you said there's more happiness or joy or positivity than sadness. And I think
Yeah.
that's really what it comes down to is it's okay to have those sad moments. It's okay to
Yeah.
feel those moments as you go.
Yeah.
We just I think what we want to try to do is not let those dictate our actions, our behaviors, and get us in a place where it's harder to get out of. And
Yeah.
I know I did that a lot in my life, and now that I can still have those sad moments, I can still have those moments where I struggle a little bit mentally. But I don't let it last as long. It's a lot shorter of a
Yeah.
period, and I have tools to get me out of it. I know what I need to do to get back out of it.
And that's it, right? It's not about avoiding it. It's not about, oh, I'm feeling sad, so I'll go and push that away and play the drums. It's actually about being in it, but also learning how to lift yourself out of it
Mhm.
when it's getting too much, because and this is not for people who have just lost someone. I totally get that in the first however long. I don't even want to put a figure on it, but for, whatever it is for you, if you're in that deep darkness, it's okay. Going and learning the drums is not going to help you right now, but it's over time. And when you do get to that point where you're just like, I'm so over myself, and you start looking for how you're going to, I mean, some people don't. Some people stay in that forever, and that's okay. That's everyone does themselves. But for me, I just was at a point where I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I can't. There has to be something that's going to help me. And I just started all these little things, And another one for me was swimming, like swimming laps. That's helps my headspace a lot. I don't do it enough. It's winter in Melbourne. It's really hard right now, but when I'm doing it, I'm just so much healthier mentally. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like it's us having this conversation isn't us saying like go do that right away, right? If you're in that early process or something that just happened, like you have to be in that moment where you almost just know, like you almost just know that you want to start feeling joy again. You want to start getting out of your own head. And because I don't think when we lose somebody, I guess thinking about it, when people lose me, when it's my time to go, I don't, yeah, be sad for a little bit, but don't let that dictate what you're going to do today. Don't let that dictate, how you're going to spend the rest of your life. Like, I
Yeah.
still want you to enjoy it. I still want you to be able to have fun and just have those memories, right? And I
Yeah.
think I think that's been a good thing in for me in that process of getting back to what I need to get done is all right,
Yes.
well, I've lost this person, whether it was a family member, whether it was a friend. I don't want to just sit there and now waste the fact that I'm still here, the fact that I can still keep going. I want to get back to things. And you just kind of know that moment, like you said, that moment where it's like, all right, I'm ready to take this first step. And I think
Yeah.
that goes back to the beginning of our conversation of just that self-compassion. Like some days you won't be ready, some days you will, some days you'll take a step back, some days you'll jump into it and take 10 steps forward. And
Yeah.
it's just having that understanding with yourself that there's going to be good days and bad days, and all we're trying to do is continue to grow and heal through those moments.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes we also, I know for me, I felt really guilty when I started to feel okay again. I felt like I was betraying people that I'd lost, that, oh, yeah, I think we can wear our grief a little bit as a badge of honor at times and get to a point where it's like, well, I'm never going to feel okay again because I loved that person so much or I lost so much. But, that's just time as well. And yeah, being able to you know, like you say, I don't think anyone who's passed wants to see their living people live in misery forever, you know. And I think you do find ways to honor those people in through being joyful and through finding good things in your life again. You know, I just yeah, you just got to find your way to honor them, um, and not feel guilty about living your life, because of course that's what they would want for you. But yeah, it's hard at first to do that. It's like, yeah, really tricky. I felt guilty every time I laughed, you know. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, I shouldn't be laughing. Like, I'm really sad right now.
Yeah, no, and I
Yeah.
think that's a really I'm glad you brought that up before we were finished, because I think that's something people can really relate to. It's just
Yeah.
that fact of like, oh, this person meant so much to me, and I'm so devastated by the loss. I could never be happy, or I can never find joy ever again. And that I probably, feel comfortable saying, like, that person does not want you to feel that way. Like, that
Yeah.
person, I'm sure they love that. That's what they meant to you, but they don't want you to go on in misery, right? If that connection
Yeah.
was so good, you don't want that for people. But I think that's something people can really relate to. Just like when you said that, I was thinking about when I lost my friend, and how I was just like, my initial thoughts were my life was done. Like, there's no hope for me in this moment. If he's gone now,
Yeah.
and that that just took me so far down, and I spiraled so far out of control, and into such, my own personal hell, that made that whole thing even worse than what it could have been. So I think that's a really great point that people can relate to and experience, because losses, I still think that's one of the toughest experiences we'll go through, is losing somebody we love. And so it's a really hard thing to to come to grips with, come to terms with, and realize, like, you got to find ways to find that joy again. You got to find ways to enjoy what you have in your life, as you continue to grow through it.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, Lou did it again. Hit that 40-minute mark with with ease.
We
I guess.
we are not capable of doing 20-minute
No.
chats.
I remember looking at it like 20 minutes. It was like, all right, we might be able to wrap. No, because we just, that conversation is good, and I enjoy it. And again, I really appreciate being able to do this with you. I'm sure we'll be able to have some more conversations and connect some more. But I've really enjoyed just kind of talking through this with you, and this was the 12 years that my friend passed,
Oh,
just at the beginning of
okay.
this week. No,
Oh,
just a couple days ago. And
wow.
with everything else I've told you that I've had going on, that just kind of added to that,
Wow.
in my
Yeah.
life. And I think this has been a really good thing for me. If nothing else, it's been a really good thing for me, and just working through my own, process with that stuff, and finding new ways to heal and new ways to look at it and think about it. And so I really appreciate, you sharing some of your experiences, and your perspectives on something like this.
Well, thank you. I've loved it too. It's been awesome. And like I said to you, our chats are so different to any other podcast interviews I've done. You ask me really different questions and stuff. So I've really enjoyed it as well. And hopefully we'll stay connected from here.
Yeah, no, I think we will. We've had some good chats. We'll have to